Ladies and gentlemen, it is ridiculous that Team Canada wants to deal with the 73.4% of stakeholders in this debate who live in developing countries with a single line that is largely prejudicial of the idea that they're all living in countries with rigged elections that can never have any semblance of democracy. We think that's offensive, we think that's paternalistic, we think it's fundamentally untrue. But even worse, ladies and gentlemen, was that in Team Canada's speech, they wanted to say that we were all for free trade and we just somehow got less free trade, never recognizing that in every single speech, we pointed out the nuance that we like some free trade, we don't like other free trade, we get the type of free trade we want. It's on those criteria alone that they should lose this debate, because if you can't engage with the things that we actually stand for, and they can't engage with the biggest stakeholders, they can never win the round. Ladies and gentlemen, this round came down to two questions. First was the idea of whether or not we have a right, of whether or not we actually have a right to make decisions. Secondly, and more importantly, was the idea of development countries and developing nations, and whether or not they actually are better off under this system. So on this first idea about making decisions, right? Because the very best conception of what they were able to give you in this debate about making decisions was that self-determination and democracy, and we suppose every single other decision, only mattered insofar as you are able to make a good decision. No response to the idea that we would never allow, for example, a junta to come into power just because we wanted trains to run faster. The idea is that there is a value in and of itself to making decisions about yourself. That is self-actualization, and that is you being able to have a choice and be your own person. All content from Ved's speech and my speech unresponded to under their side. We tell them that that alone loses them the debate because it can never prove to us that it's principally illegitimate in the first place. But let's say that we lost this point entirely. Let's say that at best they prove to us that we don't have a principled right to self-determination, and this is all based on consequences. At very best, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a round-winning argument. That is to say, they still have to prove to us that they would get worse consequences in order for them to have any chance at all in winning the debate entirely. Which brings us to the second question in this debate. Who best helps developing nations under both sides, right? We gave you the examples of countries like Nigeria who were told by the same sort of special interest groups that they wanted to talk about that they should open up and liberalize, and ended up being totally destroyed by having structural readjustment programs. The best response they give to this is the idea of that these countries can never be a part of this motion because they don't have real elections. Firstly, notice just exactly how badly Team Canada wants to squirrel this debate to the point where they would actually just generalize most of the world into this, and just because they don't want to deal with developing countries in the first place. But secondly, we tell you that in many cases, the example of India was not to illustrate that this is a case where we want or don't want free trade, but that this is a case, a really, really big case of where we actually have elections, ladies and gentlemen. Surprise, surprise. So, ladies and gentlemen, what does this mean? We think at the point at which Team Canada is unable to defend the effects that these decisions have on the most vulnerable group of society for the three reasons we gave you, that they were the most vulnerable because they can get sued, because if countries like Australia can get sued, we're pretty sure Cote d'Ivoire can get sued and beaten into the ground over the most basic things like cigarette warnings on packages. But also we told you that they had the most to gain or lose because they had high tariffs. And finally we told you that it's the biggest group of society in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is simple. Team Canada couldn't engage with the maximum number of stakeholders that we wanted to bring out. Because of this, they attempted to generalize the entirety of that stakeholder group rather than deal with it. It's on those points alone that we won this debate.